You know when you're just scrolling through your feed and bam, you see this health warning that makes you totally rethink what you're eating? A scary headline about some common food that's supposedly a massive risk? Well, today we're diving deep into one of those claims, a viral scare about a food additive that got everyone talking. Okay, let's get right into it. This is the statement that started the whole firestorm. It came from a doctor on a popular health show, and it was simple, direct, and honestly pretty terrifying. The idea was that pickled foods have these things called nitrites, that they're carcinogens, and that they could seriously multiply your cancer risk. I mean, a warning like that is designed to make you sit up and pay attention. And it worked. And just look at this number, 7 times. Not a 10% increase, not a 50% increase, a 7-fold increase. That's a 700% jump. When you see a number that big, it's pretty much impossible to ignore. It's the kind of thing that makes you want to clear out your pantry, right? But here's the thing. A claim that huge, that dramatic, should set off an alarm bell in your head. And that bell should be asking one simple question. Where's the proof? Is this a real, solid, scientific fact? Or is there maybe more to the story? So let's follow the exact investigative steps that Professor Lin laid out in the article this whole explainer is based on. So when you're confronted with a claim like this, what's the very first thing you should do? You don't just take the headline at face value. You do what scientists do. You go straight to the source, the primary scientific literature. That's where the actual, vetted, peer-reviewed research lives. And that's exactly what Professor Lin did. He went to PubMed. Now, if you haven't heard of it, think of PubMed as the Fort Knox of biomedical research. It's the go-to public database for pretty much every doctor and scientist on the planet when they need to find a study. He kept the search simple and direct. He used the exact keywords from the claim, nasopharyngeal cancer and nitrite. I mean, if there's a link, a search this specific should bring up all the relevant research, right? And here it is, the first massive plot twist in this whole story. The number of direct hits for his search, a big, fat 0, not a zilch. Not a single scientific paper in the entire library directly linked nitrites to nasopharyngeal cancer. For a claim about a 7 times higher risk, finding absolutely no evidence, well, that's not just a red flag, that's a giant, waving red banner. Okay, so if the scientific database draws a blank on nitrites, then what are the actual recognized risk factors for this cancer? What's the real story? For that, let's turn to the big guns, the major cancer organizations, and see what they have to say. And this is where it gets really interesting. Organizations like the American Cancer Society do talk about a potential link, but not to nitrites. They point to things like salt-cured fish and, most importantly, they identify a completely different compound, nitrosamine. And notice how careful their language is. They use words like may and seems to, and then drop the most important line. There is no conclusive evidence in humans. So a different chemical, and the evidence isn't even solid. And this right here, this slide gets to the absolute core of the whole mix-up. It's a classic case of mistaken identity. Nitrites and nitrosamines sound similar, but they are not the same thing at all. A nitrite is a simple compound. It's in our saliva, it's in vegetables like spinach. A nitrosamine is a totally different thing that can sometimes form when nitrites combine with other stuff, usually under really high heat. They are fundamentally different molecules. Professor Lin's analogy here is just perfect. He says confusing these two is like mistaking a house cat for a tiger. Sure, they're both in the cat family, but one is a cuddly pet, and the other, well, it's a tiger. Their nature and the threat they pose are worlds apart. The entire cancer scare was built on confusing the kitty cat for the tiger. So this just flips the whole story on its head. And it leads to an even crazier question. If nitrites aren't the villain, could it be possible that they're actually good for us? Could the real truth be the complete 180-degree opposite of that scary warning? And unbelievably, the science says yes. A resounding yes. Far from being some dangerous poison, nitrites are actually vital for our bodies. They are a key ingredient our body uses to make nitric oxide, and that molecule is a superstar. It helps regulate our blood pressure, it protects our stomach, it can even help fight off cavities. The very thing we were told to run away from is something our bodies actively use to stay healthy. And look, this isn't some new age theory. This is rock-solid science. Back in 1998, a Nobel Prize in Medicine was literally awarded for figuring out how important nitric oxide, which comes from nitrites, is for our heart and blood vessels. Then you have studies showing beetroot juice helps blood pressure specifically because of this nitrate to nitrate conversion. Now, even health agencies are officially putting out info to clear up the confusion. All right, let's bring it all home. It's time to put that scary myth that started this whole thing right up against the scientific reality we've just walked through. And this table just makes it crystal clear. The myth on one side, nitrates are dangerous cancer causers. The reality on the other, nope, they're essential for our health. The myth, a 7 by cancer risk. The reality, 0 direct evidence. The myth, avoid them. The reality, the actual concern is with a completely different compound, and even that's not proven in humans. So, when you boil it all down, the biggest lesson here isn't really about chemistry or nutrition. It's about something way more important. It's about critical thinking. It's about how we process information, especially the stuff that's designed to make us afraid. And this is the real takeaway. The most powerful tool you have in a world overflowing with information and misinformation is just asking this one simple question. Where is the evidence? Demanding to see the primary source, looking beyond the scary headline, that is your ultimate defense. So we'll leave you with this thought. We just busted one myth together. But what other pieces of so-called common knowledge do you accept without a second thought? What else is out there that deserves a closer look if we just dare to ask that simple, powerful question? Where's the evidence?